Japan's history begins in prehistoric times, with human habitation dating back to the Paleolithic period. During this time, early inhabitants were hunter-gatherers who lived off the land, crafting tools from stone. The Jomon period, which started around 14,000 BCE, saw the development of more advanced cultures. The Jomon people were known for their pottery, one of the oldest in the world. They lived in semi-permanent settlements and practiced rudimentary forms of agriculture, relying on hunting, fishing, and foraging. Their distinctive pottery, characterized by intricate designs and rope-like impressions, remains one of the most iconic artifacts of this era. Around 300 BCE, the Yayoi period began, introducing significant cultural shifts to the Japanese archipelago. The Yayoi people, likely migrants from the Korean peninsula or China, brought new techniques such as rice farming, metalworking, and weaving. This period marked the transition from a hunter-gatherer society to an agricultural one, centered on rice cultivation. The Yayoi also introduced the use of bronze and iron tools, and social stratification began to emerge, with more complex political structures forming as powerful clans began to dominate regions. By the 3rd century CE, Japan had entered the Kofun period, named after the large keyhole-shaped burial mounds built for the ruling elite. During this time, the Yamato clan began to rise to power, establishing themselves as the dominant political force in central Japan. The Yamato rulers claimed descent from the sun goddess Amaterasu, linking their authority to divine origins. This period saw the introduction of Chinese cultural and political influences, including Confucianism and the Chinese writing system, which played a significant role in shaping Japan's early state formation. The Yamato court also began forming alliances and asserting control over surrounding regions, laying the foundation for the imperial system that continues in some form today. In the mid-6th century, Buddhism was introduced to Japan from Korea. This new religion initially encountered resistance from traditional Shinto beliefs, but it eventually gained a foothold, especially among the ruling elite. Prince Shotoku, a significant figure during this time, was instrumental in promoting Buddhism and implementing reforms based on Chinese models of governance. Under his influence, Japan adopted aspects of Chinese legal codes and administrative practices. Shotoku's efforts helped centralize power under the imperial court, and Buddhism became a central part of Japanese culture, coexisting with Shinto practices. The Nara period, which began in 710, marked the establishment of Japan's first permanent capital in Nara. This period was characterized by a strong connection to Chinese culture, with the Nara court modeling its government after the Tang dynasty in China. During this time, Buddhism became increasingly influential in state affairs, and large temples such as Todaiji were constructed to demonstrate the power of both the state and religion. The Nara period also saw the compilation of Japan's earliest historical records, the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, which blended mythology and historical events to legitimize the imperial family's rule. However, political power was still decentralized, and local clans retained considerable autonomy. In 794, the capital was moved to Heian-kyo, marking the beginning of the Heian period. This era is often seen as the golden age of classical Japanese culture. The imperial court in Heian-kyo, modern-day Kyoto, became the center of political, cultural, and artistic life. Aristocratic families, especially the powerful Fujiwara clan, dominated the political landscape, while the emperor's role became largely ceremonial. The Heian period produced some of Japan's most renowned literature, including The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, a novel that vividly portrays the courtly life of the time. This period also saw the development of distinct Japanese aesthetics, influenced by both Chinese culture and native traditions. As the Heian period progressed, the central government's power began to decline. Regional lords, or daimyo, and their warrior retainers, the samurai, started to gain influence. By the 12th century, the samurai class had become a powerful force in Japanese society. The struggle for power between aristocratic families culminated in the Genpei War 1180–1185, a conflict between the Taira and Minamoto clans. After the Minamoto clan's victory, Minamoto no Yoritomo established the Kamakura shogunate in 1192, marking the beginning of the feudal era. The emperor remained a symbolic figure, but real power lay with the shogun, the military dictator. The Kamakura period was characterized by the dominance of the samurai class and the rise of a warrior-centered society. During this time, Zen Buddhism gained popularity among the samurai, emphasizing discipline, meditation, and self-control. In the late 13th century, Japan faced two Mongol invasions under Kublai Khan. Both invasions were repelled, in part due to typhoons that destroyed much of the Mongol fleet. These storms were later called kamikaze, or divine winds, and were seen as evidence of Japan's divine protection. Internal strife and financial difficulties eventually weakened the Kamakura shogunate, leading to its downfall in 1333. The subsequent Muromachi period, also known as the Ashikaga period, was marked by the rise of the Ashikaga shogunate. Although the Ashikaga clan ruled from Kyoto, they never held the same level of centralized control as their predecessors. The Muromachi period was a time of both cultural growth and political instability. The arts flourished, with the development of no theater, tea ceremonies, and ink painting. However, the country was also plagued by internal conflicts, which culminated in the Sengoku, or Warring States period, during which regional warlords fought for control over Japan. By the late 16th century, Japan began to reunify under three prominent warlords: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Oda Nobunaga initiated the process of unification, using military force to subdue rival clans. After his assassination, Toyotomi Hideyoshi continued this effort, bringing all of Japan under his control by 1590. Following Hideyoshi's death, Tokugawa Ieyasu defeated his rivals at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 and established the Tokugawa shogunate in 1603. The Tokugawa period, also known as the Edo period, brought about over 250 years of peace and stability. The Tokugawa shogunate implemented a strict social order, with the samurai at the top of the hierarchy, followed by farmers, artisans, and merchants. Japan adopted a policy of isolation, or sakoku, cutting off most contact with the outside world. Foreign trade was limited to a few select ports, and Japanese citizens were prohibited from traveling abroad. Despite this isolation, Japan's economy prospered, and its culture thrived. The Edo period saw the development of kabuki theater, ukiyo-e woodblock prints, and haiku poetry. In the mid-19th century, Japan's isolationist policies came to an end when American Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in 1853, demanding that Japan open its ports to foreign trade. This event, coupled with internal dissatisfaction with the shogunate, led to the eventual downfall of the Tokugawa regime. In 1868, the Meiji Restoration marked the return of power to the emperor, and Japan began a period of rapid modernization and industrialization. During the Meiji period, Japan adopted many Western technologies, political systems, and military strategies. The feudal system was abolished, and Japan transformed into a modern nation-state. The government implemented sweeping reforms, including the introduction of a Western-style constitution, a new education system, and industrial development. By the early 20th century, Japan had emerged as a global power. Its military victories in the First Sino-Japanese War 1894–1895 and the Russo-Japanese War 1904–1905 further cemented its position as a rising imperial power. Japan's expansionist ambitions continued into the early 20th century, culminating in its involvement in World War II. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, Japan fought against the Allied powers, pursuing aggressive territorial expansion across Asia and the Pacific. However, Japan's war effort ultimately ended in defeat following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Japan surrendered, and the country was occupied by the United States. The post-war occupation led to significant political and social changes. A new constitution, adopted in 1947, established Japan as a pacifist nation, renouncing war and limiting its military to self-defense forces. The emperor's role was reduced to a ceremonial one, and Japan transitioned into a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary system. The post-war period saw Japan's economy recover and grow rapidly, becoming one of the world's leading industrial powers by the 1960s. Japan's history reflects a dynamic balance between tradition and change, isolation and engagement with the world, and periods of peace followed by conflict and transformation. Through its long and complex history, Japan has developed a unique culture that continues to influence the world today.